So you're running out of closet space. The good news? You don't need to stop shopping. You just need to start selling with The RealReal. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. Whether it's that mini bag that can't even fit your phone, or those boots you never fully broke in, The RealReal handles everything from photography and copywriting to shipping and pricing. So you can just sit back, get paid, and make room for things that actually feel like you. And with 10,000 plus new arrivals every single day from top designers like Prada, Celine, Louis Vuitton, and Loewe, all for up to 90% off retail, you're bound to find something perfectly on brand to fill that extra closet space with. Plus, right now, you can get an extra $100 to shop when you sell for the first time. Make room for what feels like you. Go to therealreal.com to start selling and get your extra $100 to keep shopping at therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com. Terms apply.
So hot outside, you Good Friday gone. Remember you were talking, and I watched that sweat run down your face. Reached up and I caught it at your chin, licked my fingertips.
A little bit of the Dave Matthews Band to start our show on this Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday, right? I'm having a little bit of trouble. Josh Piercy and I were talking about that.
So you're running out of closet space. The good news? You don't need to stop shopping. You just need to start selling with The RealReal. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. Whether it's that mini bag that can't even fit your phone, or those boots you never fully broke in, The RealReal handles everything from photography and copywriting to shipping and pricing. So you can just sit back, get paid, and make room for things that actually feel like you. And with 10,000 plus new arrivals every single day from top designers like Prada, Celine, Louis Vuitton, and Loewe, all for up to 90% off retail, you're bound to find something perfectly on brand to fill that extra closet space with. Plus, right now, you can get an extra $100 to shop when you sell for the first time. Make room for what feels like you. Go to therealreal.com to start selling and get your extra $100 to keep shopping at therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com. Terms apply.
Last night in Windsor after the game, as we enjoyed some downtime, because it just feels like another day blends into the next day during these playoff times when you're essentially playing hockey every other night and traveling from city to city. This is our third city in these playoffs, starting in Saginaw.
So you're running out of closet space. The good news? You don't need to stop shopping. You just need to start selling with The RealReal. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. Whether it's that mini bag that can't even fit your phone, or those boots you never fully broke in, The RealReal handles everything from photography and copywriting to shipping and pricing. So you can just sit back, get paid, and make room for things that actually feel like you. And with 10,000 plus new arrivals every single day from top designers like Prada, Celine, Louis Vuitton, and Loewe, all for up to 90% off retail, you're bound to find something perfectly on brand to fill that extra closet space with. Plus, right now, you can get an extra $100 to shop when you sell for the first time. Make room for what feels like you. Go to therealreal.com to start selling and get your extra $100 to keep shopping at therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com. Terms apply.
Then it was off to the Sioux, and here we are this morning from the remote studios in beautiful. Okay, it's gray and dreary, just like back home. But I do like the city of Windsor. Dave Matthews Band, a little bit of stay wasting time on our show to begin this Tuesday, the 28th of April. And we're going to begin with some fun because we play that song, Stay, from the album Before These Crowded Streets, which on this day, April the 28th, in 1998, debuted at #1 on the US albums chart. That's right. Before These Crowded Streets by the Dave Matthews Band debuted at #1 on the albums chart. Here's where the fun comes in. That debut at #1 for Before These Crowded Streets by the Dave Matthews Band ended a 16-week run at the top of the albums chart by which album? I thought that just for fun, I mean, we're going deep here, but why not? Everybody likes trivia, right? So which album did Dave Matthews, Before These Crowded Streets, unseat at the top of the US albums chart on this day in 1998? I'm going to give it some thought. You're more than welcome to send me a guess via email. No cheating using the Google. Or if you want to give me a call, phone lines open the minute we begin the show every day at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Before These Crowded Streets, a Dave Matthews Band album, debuted at #1 on this day in 1998. Which album did it unseat at the top of the album charts? It had been there, this album unseated, for 16 weeks. Heck of a run. Dave Matthews Band stopped it. I hope your day is off to a great start. I have a little story to share connected to something we were talking about quite a bit on the show last week, and I have not forgotten. I'm kind of like the 570 News Radio elephant, okay? I don't forget things. I'll get to the story in a moment, but Doug is already on the phone with us, so if Doug's here, we want him to be a part of the show. Good morning, Douglas.
Good morning, Mike. You know, there's a little game on Facebook called Quiz Planet that I play. Very, very, very many subjects. But I have to tell you, I avoid music like the plague.
Why? Why do you do that?
Because it's not. I'm lousy at music trivia.
Wait a minute. You're a musician. You're a singer, Doug.
Yep.
Okay.
Every now and then I have to go through the motions of the questions, and I do not too bad, but when it comes to actual dates and places like what you just asked for, I'm lost. I confess I don't know.
Listen, there is no
you know that.
There is no requirement to answer the question. I'll give the answer. I don't think I said that before 9:30. Just let you think about it for a little bit. A 16-week run at #1 on the albums chart ended by the Dave Matthews Band in 1998. Yeah. We'll get to it. Don't worry, Doug. What else is on your mind?
At least the goal that Windsor got at the early stage of the third period last night was a goal. There was no controversy, unlike the NHL the last two nights. I couldn't believe. Now Edmonton got the worst of the deal. The goal last night the first goal in overtime scored by Vegas was disallowed because it was offside. But the referee in the Oilers game had absolutely no business calling that a good goal on the ice when he didn't see it. He should have called no goal and let the room decide whether it was or wasn't a goal, because that's not his job. But it was so close. We're talking razor's edge. But I'll tell you, I've been watching as much NHL hockey as I can. You know, I'm not a Leaf fan, but I'm a hockey fan too, and it's absolutely the hockey has been absolutely great. A lot of rough stuff going on too, but it's really, really good hockey. It's really something worth watching.
Doug, appreciate the call. Good to hear from you as always. Not to pick too much of a nit, but I'll just let you in on a little something, okay? These conference finals in the Ontario Hockey League, the East final between Brantford and Barrie and the West final between Kitchener and Windsor, also very much worth watching and or listening to if that's your choice or that's the option that you have. We have also been treated to some very good hockey. Just quickly on the physical note that Doug did mention that he's seeing in the National Hockey League, I ran into the OHL's director of officiating at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium on Sunday during Game 2, and we talked a little bit about how these playoffs were going in the OHL and what officials are seeing in the National Hockey League with all of that physicality, the rough stuff that Doug talked about. And the director of officiating in the OHL is wondering if there's going to be a trickle-down effect, because we're starting to see it in some areas around the Canadian Hockey League. How about in the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League playoffs in Moncton the other night, when there was a post-game brawl following the conclusion of a playoff game. So we're starting to see that trickle down, and those who are keeping an eye on these things are noticing and wondering if we're going to be seeing how much more perhaps we'll be seeing in that trickle down effect from that rough stuff we see in the National Hockey League making its way into junior hockey. Okay, I want to get to that story I wanted to share. This story came up kind of randomly over the weekend in a conversation I had with a former local politician many years ago, many years ago. But I think there is a connection to something that's going on today. So as I get to that story, I couldn't help but have my ears perk up this morning. And I don't know if yours did as well, but new polling from Angus Reid that I heard about during All News Mornings with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas today. And this new polling gives Mark Carney and our federal Liberal government a grade after about a year in office. And more than half of the people who responded to this Angus Reid poll said that affordability remains their number one concern. This is the key here. So more than half of the respondents to this poll say affordability is still their number one concern. And then you dive deeper, 70% of those polled said that they feel our federal government has fallen short of expectations when it comes to the high cost of living. And 67%, 2 out of 3, think the federal government has failed on improving housing affordability. So I would call that a decent majority of respondents, 70% saying expectations, you've fallen short on that when it comes to giving us a more affordable life here in Canada. Affordable housing, not a thing yet. Those dreams of home ownership for us remain distant. And I'll bring that right here to the region of Waterloo as well. Remember that 1 in 8 households in this community rely on the food bank for support right now. Food insecure are 1 in 8 households. And our unemployment rate here in the region at 8.6% is the second highest in all of Canada. Why do I bring this up? Not to bum you out on an already gray and dreary morning, okay? But I think it's worth remembering statistics like that. So polling saying the federal government is not meeting expectations on affordability. Here in the region, 1 in 8 households relying on the food bank for support, etc. And what were we talking about on the show last week? An awful lot. A decision made by our regional council going against a consultant's recommendation to increase the pay for chairs of committees by 89%. You can call it 89%. You can call it $5,500. The bottom line is a consultant recommended a 3% increase, and council decided to vote for itself an 89% increase to what they are given by way of extra pay or honorarium for being the chair of a committee. I think this is important, that it's not as though we're asking anybody to work for free, right? Regional councillors already make a little more than $50,000 a year, and those who sit as chairs of committees already earn an extra $7,400 for being the chair of that committee. So it's not as though you're getting nothing, but councillors decided they needed 89% more to be the chair of that committee. While 1 in 8 households in Waterloo Region relies on a food bank, while our unemployment rate is at 8.6% locally, while we all continue to feel the crunch of unaffordability. But I guess things are more affordable now, right, for those councillors who are committee chairs. They already have jobs making more than $50,000 a year. They already get $7,400 more for being the chair of a committee, but they want another $5,500 on top of that $7,400. So it's nice, isn't it? If you can make life less unaffordable for yourself. Which brings me around to the story that I just happened to get in a casual conversation with a former local politician who told me the story of a long time ago. This goes back quite some time because this particular individual is no longer in office and was in office many, many years ago. But when they first came to office in their very first year, the council that they were on, out of the blue, middle of the term, voted themselves a raise. We've been seeing municipal councils lately voting in favor of pay increases, but it's always for the next term of council. In this particular case, all these years ago, the existing council in the middle of the term voted themselves a raise. But this new councillor, way back when, said, I'm not taking it. I'm not doing that. That's not why I ran for office and got elected. I won't take the raise. And oh boy, did the rest of the council get upset with this particular individual. In fact, they insisted, you have to take the raise. We don't have any mechanism within our payroll for you to not take that raise. You have to take it. And so the councillor did, and once it was received, donated it to a community organization within the ward that they represented. So made sure the money went back to an area of need in the community, in the neighborhood that they represented. And it just struck me that that is a decision that demonstrates tremendous integrity. And I wonder if such integrity still exists on local councils today. I will remind you again, and regional council, I'm talking directly to you on this one. It's not too late to reverse course on the 89% increase. All you have to do is bring forward a new motion, get your fellow councillors to support it, and rescind the decision from a week ago. You have that option in light of everything that's going on with affordability in this country, in this community. You have the option of kind of staying in it with us. We're not asking you to do the job for nothing. We're just asking you to continue doing the job for what you've been doing the job for already. Let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning.
1, 2.
All right, but you know, instead of just 2, right? We got 5 for you. That's why we call it the Farwell Show 5. And number 1, Prime Minister Mark Carney suggesting Canadians will hear good news today about Ottawa's fiscal situation when his Liberal government tables its spring economic statement later today. Some analysts expect the deficit for the last fiscal year will come in lower than the $78 billion projected in the November budget. We'll also get a look at how the war in Iran and new spending items are affecting federal finances. Number 2, the Ontario Provincial Police Force is mourning one of its own after a 6-year member was killed in a highway crash just east of Toronto. Sergeant Brandon Malcolm was on the job when his police motorcycle crashed on the 401 in Cobourg. Investigators say Malcolm died at the scene, and it does not appear as though any other vehicle was involved. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, a longtime councillor in Guelph has announced her intention to run for mayor. Leanne Caron, who has represented Guelph's Ward 5 for the past 20 years, says she's throwing her hat into the mayoralty race. Caron is the only declared candidate so far. Current Mayor Cam Guthrie announced last month that he would not be seeking re-election after serving 3 terms. The municipal election, remember, is this October. Number 4, the iconic Wiener Beacon is in need of repair. That Schneider's sign that sits along the 401 near Guelph has been damaged, with the upper left corner missing pieces in part of the beloved Dutch girl's face. Nobody is quite sure how or when the damage occurred, but parent company Maple Leaf Foods says they are looking into the situation. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, a mixed bag of results for our local sports teams last night. Let's start with the good, which are the Cambridge Redhawks, who still have not lost a playoff game this year. The Redhawks doubled the St. Mary's Lincolns last night 4-2. taking a 2-0 series lead in the Sutherland Cup Championship. Meantime, in Windsor, where I am this morning, the Spitfires doubled our Rangers last night 4-2. Kitchener still leads the Western Conference Final 2-1. Game 4 in the series is tomorrow, and there will be a Game 5 back home in Kitchener on Friday. Tickets are already on sale, so get yours today and join us at the Memorial Auditorium on Friday night for what we hope will be a chance to clinch the series, but we have to get Game 4 out of the way tomorrow first. And there's also going to be a Game 5 in the Basketball Super League Final. After winning the first 2 games of the series, the KW Titans have lost the next 2, including last night, 100-97 up in Sudbury. The 5th and deciding game between the Titans and the Sudbury 5 goes tomorrow night at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. The winner claims the Basketball Super League title. The 5 are the defending champs, so get out there and give the Titans a home court advantage at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium tomorrow night. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday.
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
Oh, I've done the math. And I still think an 89% increase to your role as the chair of a regional committee is too great an increase. I continue to encourage you to reconsider the decision. Have you given any more thought to which album it was that the Dave Matthews Band knocked off the top of the album charts on this day in 1998? The album had been there for 16 weeks. And oh yeah, that Wiener Beacon, that it's in need of some repair, the beloved Dutch girl's face. Do you remember the Dutch girl's name? We'll talk about that. And your morning wake-up call is coming right up. Either you can make it or I will. This is the Mike Farwell Show. We're live from Windsor this morning on 570 News Radio. Nancy Featherstone, to be exact, but Nancy is the name of that smiling Dutch girl face that you see when you're on Highway 401 West around the Guelph area, and the iconic Schneider's sign still stands. It's always, forever, let us know that we were getting closer to home, of course. And the Featherstone name will appear. I've been wondering, the former Schneider's plant on Cortlandt Avenue, of course, in Kitchener, which is now long gone. And there's a development that's been underway for quite some time. It's called the Mets, if I'm not mistaken. But the idea is to build a bunch of housing there. And Featherstone, if I'm not mistaken, will be the name of one of the streets or areas within this new development. If it ever, that plant has been closed for how long? And the work started, I can't even remember how long ago, but something new will rise from where the Schneider's plant once stood on Cortlandt Avenue in Kitchener, and wait for the name Featherstone to be featured in that development some way, somehow, because Nancy Featherstone was the original model that brought us that smiling Dutch girl face that we still see on some packaging of Maple Leaf Foods and the Schneider's product. And that's the name of the girl that you see on that iconic sign as you make your way back to Kitchener along the 401, which has been damaged. Maybe it was weather. I can't imagine it was vandals for the small part of the sign that was damaged, but Maple Leaf Food says they're looking into it. But Nancy is the name of the girl. The name of the album that the Dave Matthews Band knocked from the top of the U.S. albums chart on this day, April the 28th, back in 1998, well, that was the Titanic soundtrack. How do you like that? 16 weeks at number 1. I don't know how long the movie was number 1 at the box office, but it was a huge hit way back when. And the soundtrack to the movie Titanic was at the top of the U.S. albums charts for 16 18 weeks until the Dave Matthews Band came along with Before These Crowded Streets. And that was the end of Titanic's run at the top of the U.S. albums chart. There you go. Just a little bit of fun trivia for you as we begin our time together on this Tuesday morning. Another little nugget I came across that I thought was interesting, and it makes me even more curious how things went around the region. But we have learned, thanks to a new report coming to Guelph Council in the weeks ahead, that their snow budget this past winter went $1.9 million over, sitting in a deficit position. Shocker, eh? The number of weather events cited as one of the reasons, the cost of salt cited as another reason, and then there was all of the equipment and all of the time that had to be paid for by the city of Guelph for plows and workers to clear sidewalks and roads. None of this should come as a surprise. So a $1.9 million snow deficit or snow budget deficit for the city of Guelph this past winter, because it was a brutal one, as you well know. So I'm curious as to what those numbers looked like here around the region. We'll see if we can't get some insight into that into the days and weeks ahead. But it was a $1.9 million snow budget deficit in Guelph this past year. Okay, I have to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then we have many things to talk about today, not the least of which is the, quite frankly, shocking verdict in the Jeffrey Sloka, former neurologist, sexual assault trial in Kitchener. The decision announced on Friday, and I think it still reverberates today. About 4 dozen complainants, and the judge in the case found too little credible evidence against the former neurologist, Jeffrey Sloka, and he is free of all charges. We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. As I suspect you know by now, a former neurologist who was facing accusations of sexual assault from 48 women in our community was acquitted Friday of all charges. Jeffrey Sloak, it should be noted as well, Sloka, pardon me, it should be noted as well, will not be able to return to his practice as a neurologist. His license had been revoked and it will not be reinstated, but acquitted of all charges on accusations of assaulting 48 female patients who were being provided care. Jennifer Hutton is the CEO of Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region and joins us for a conversation. Jennifer, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mike.
What was your reaction when you heard this verdict on Friday?
Well, I was shocked. There was a few of us from Women's Crisis Services that were outside the courthouse on Friday morning. We didn't go in to hear the verdict, but afterwards, after we got back to the shelter, we heard shortly after that there was an acquittal of all charges, and I couldn't believe it.
Why was it important for you, Jen, to have that presence outside the courthouse on Friday?
It was really important for us to show our support for survivors. Survivors that have come forward have demonstrated just enormous bravery and courage. And we wanted to show them that they were not alone, that they are not alone. And we also wanted to show support for our community partners at the Sexual Assault Support Center.
That is one of the things, Jen, that really sticks with me after this. And look, it was a ruling of more than 1,000 pages, far more exhaustive than I could ever possibly go through. And I think we all have to take that breath and think about the rule of law and what went into it. But the impact and what sits with me still today is what this might mean for someone who wants to come forward in the future. And I wonder how you feel in that respect, if this might make women hesitate to come forward with a complaint.
Yeah, absolutely. That is my greatest worry. We already know that few women actually do come forward to report sexual assault because there's been a history of not being believed and being discredited. So few actually do come forward. And now I worry that is going to worsen. Some days it feels like within gender-based violence, we're taking steps forward, and Fridays seem like a big step backwards.
And as an agency that works in this space, Jen, I couldn't help but have my attention caught by a media release from OPP in Wellington County, either just yesterday or the day before, and a man charged with intimate partner violence, which I know is something that you deal with on a virtual daily basis at Women's Crisis Services. And you talk about, a step back, even in a situation like that, where a woman may feel trapped in the home or relationship that she is in for any number of reasons. And now maybe further one of, if I come forward, will I be believed?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the big worry. And I've said it many times that gender-based violence exists with a lot of shame and a lot of secrecy, and women don't feel safe coming forward because they often have been disbelieved. So why take that risk? So that's my worry. I, will continue to say that survivors are believed, and that the justice system and this verdict does not necessarily mean that harm did not occur, and it does not mean that the accused is innocent. It is a process, and unfortunately, we're seeing that it's quite flawed.
How do we move forward from here, Jen, and make sure that those who are suffering from gender-based violence do have the confidence and the comfort coming forward?
Yeah, well, I would say in our community, we have lots of supports for those who have experienced gender-based violence and want to wrap them around in care. And I have all the faith in the world of the great work that is done by the Sexual Assault Support Center. They're already putting together and have had this ready for a while, where they're sharing space and providing a place of healing for survivors specifically this Friday. And I heard just yesterday that they had a one-time slot available for this, and they've already had to add a second time because there is such a request for this support. So I hope people continue to come forward and know that they're not alone and that we believe them.
When it comes to gender-based violence or intimate partner violence, which I know you are more closely associated with at Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region, but what sorts of trends are you seeing in your work in that regard today, Jen?
Yeah, we continue to see very high rates of intimate partner violence. The people that we're supporting come with many challenges and great needs, mostly because of that trauma that they've experienced. So we see people struggling with their mental health, with addiction issues. We know that we have an ongoing affordable housing crisis. We have an economic crisis as well as there's affordability issues. So there's so many challenges that people come with, and we're here to support them, but the needs are really great right now.
If someone is in need of support, Jen, how do they find that in our community?
Yeah, I'd recommend that people reach out to the Sexual Assault Support Center, that they have a number of services and groups available. And of course, this one that's happening Friday that they opened a second slot for. So they're really there to assist people and anybody that is experiencing intimate partner violence, domestic violence. We invite you to reach out to us, and that we have a 24/7 online chat feature and support line. So please reach out for help. Help is there, and that, you know, there's so many great community services that are available to support survivors.
Jen, thanks so much for the work that you do and the time you've given us on the show today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Jennifer Hutton is the CEO at Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. One of the things that I learned probably too late in life, but it's been a change in the conversation over the last, I don't know, I'll just say decade or so. It might have been more, but it's more recent than it should be, I think, for me, when it comes to issues of gender-based violence, intimate partner violence. And the question was often asked, and I think commonly, in early times as we began to come to grips with these issues in our community. But the question that was asked was, why doesn't the woman leave that abusive relationship, for example? And the question we really have to be asking, and I will continue to ask, is what makes a man think it's okay to treat a partner in that fashion? Because I would submit to you very bluntly right now, you're no kind of man if that's the way that you behave. Specific to the Jeffrey Slocum case, this one's tough. I ran into a colleague over the weekend. It was the first thing that we talked about. I am a law and order guy. I believe in the rule of law, and where we're the importance of it, and why we have to believe in, uphold our courts, etc. And again, it's a decision that was more than 1,000 pages in length. I have little doubt that the judge in this case was thorough, but it is a tough thing to wrap your head around. 48 complainants, and what work goes into laying a charge. I mean, police don't do this on a whim. They have to believe there are sufficient grounds that a conviction will be the result, and it just didn't happen that way. It's very difficult to think that 48 different women could, for lack of a better phrase, be wrong in this, and the idea that this now former neurologist did what he did, believing that it was in the best interests of or was needed to help the patient's recovery. Bizarre stuff to me when it comes to the sorts of things we heard about during that trial. Let's go to the phones before a break. John is with us this morning. Good morning, John.
Morning. How are you?
I'm all right, and you?
Well, I'm really confused. I'm in one of the Waterloo Regional Homes subsidized housing. And when I moved in here about 3 years ago, the rent was $388 a month. Now I gave them the right to take the rent out every month, so I wouldn't have to go up to the community on 20 Weaver Street and pay it in cash. And now my rent's $632.
Listen, John, I hear you. I appreciate your story. I'm sorry that you're going through that. It's just not exactly what we're talking about this morning. So thanks for calling in. I hope you can get some support and some help in that regard. But I don't want to get too far off topic here, and that is way off topic. We're going to hear from the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region as we continue the conversation this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Gender-based violence exists with a lot of shame and a lot of secrecy, and women don't feel safe coming forward because they often have been disbelieved. So why take that risk? The justice system and this verdict does not necessarily mean that harm did not occur, and it does not mean that the accused is innocent. It is a process, and unfortunately we're seeing that it's quite flawed.
That is well said by Jennifer Hutton, the CEO of Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. 48 complainants, and Jeffrey Sloka, the former neurologist, acquitted on all charges. Our reporter Matt Hutchison in the 570 News Center had a chance to catch up yesterday with Sarah Castleman, who's the executive director at the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. And I wanted you to get the chance to hear what Sarah Castleman had to say about this.
What happened on Friday was a profound failure of our justice system. I was in the courtroom, and frankly, my guard was down because to me, it was inconceivable that Justice Perry would basically say that there were 41 women lying or misrepresenting or being influenced in terms of what they shared about their own experiences. So I was in the courtroom. I heard the verdict being read. And the despair and the anger from survivors and their families, like their parents, their spouses, was overwhelming. The reaction in the community has been one of shock. And so it's mirroring my reaction and the reaction of survivors. I feel like reading the judge's verdict, you could take that and actually teach a course on how sexual violence, misconceptions, and myths show up in our justice system. And so one of the ideas is that women lie about being sexually assaulted. And it's very rare that someone would lie about being sexually assaulted. It's much, much more likely that they would never report their experiences than it would be that they lie about it. And so to say that 41 women in our community, and that's the whittled down number. At one point, there were 70 women involved in this case, were lying or misrepresenting or misremembering their own experiences is a pretty big and pretty concerning statement to make. So the reactions that I've been hearing from the community are shock and outrage. Outrage that so many voices and so many experiences were disregarded and frankly discredited.
I understand you're hosting a healing event on May 1st. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going to be happening there?
Our center set the day, May 1st. We sent that before we even knew what the verdict would be. Honestly, at that point, we were expecting, either a guilty verdict or a mixed verdict, maybe some of the charges being stronger than others. We weren't actually anticipating a verdict of not guilty across all charges. And so we set that space up originally because this case has been going on for years. Like the first allegations against Sloka came out in 2017. The police investigation started in 2018, and then in 2019, charges were laid. So if you have been part of that process that whole time, you're looking at, the trial itself was about 4.5 years, but the entire process has been 8 years long. And so that kind of wait and long justice process has taken a toll on many survivors. And until this time, they haven't had an opportunity to come together, because when there's a criminal trial happening, if you bring folks together, there can be people can feel like you're colluding and it can impact the trial. So we wanted to create a space where the women that have been impacted in this space can actually come together, for what might be the first time in all these years. So now it's going to be a time of support, of seeing what the women need and what they want, both in terms of their own healing and in terms of next.
That is Sarah Castleman, the executive director at the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. That Healing Together event, the coming together on Friday, will be from 10 until noon, and then again from 1 until 3 at the Sexual Assault Support Center office, 151 Frederick Street in Kitchener. Quickly, before we get to our 10 a.m. update, let's go to the phones. Carly is with us this morning. Carly, good morning.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Carly.
It's been a tough couple of days since Friday. Like Sarah, I was also there. I started in the courtroom, and then I moved because I had my 10-month-old son with me, and he was smiling, and it didn't feel right that he brought any kind of happy energy to that. I just wanted to call in, Mike, and say a couple of things and chat with you quickly. I think it's really important for your listeners to know that this is one of the largest physician sexual assault prosecutions in Canadian history. I don't understand why it was left up to one judge, one person, one man at that to make this ruling. And I mean, as Sarah Castleman said, we were all just beside ourselves with the ruling being what it was. Judge Perry's comments were also dripping with misogyny. I think it's really important that people go and read what he had to say. As Sarah referenced, he said that, the women essentially called them liars. How can it be that all 41 women were lying? That these are folks from all different corners of our community and beyond, because the neurology clinic at Grand River serves people beyond just Waterloo Region. How can it be that they were all misrepresenting their experience? Why would anyone do that? That's not something that they would do. I've been supporting a survivor. She was one of the first women to report to police. This was pre-pandemic. And her life has been absolute hell, both while she testified for 2 days in court in November 2021, and since. She's had a child since. There have been many repeated long breaks in the case. There have been so many delays. The judge was initially going to rule in February. It was going to be the day after her daughter's first birthday. I think it's really important that your listeners know how these women, how their lives have been ripped apart. And why did the justice make them wait?
Those are great questions. And Carly, I'm so sorry. I'm dead up against the clock here, and I got to get to the news center.
Yeah. I just think
Thank you. Oh, okay. And we had an itchy trigger finger back home. Sorry, Carly, but we really do have to get to the news. We will hear from the sister of one of the complainants on our show this morning at 11. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Well, as we reported on 570 News Radio a little more than a week ago, more job cuts, and I think it's important to emphasize the more part of this, job cuts at Kids Ability. And we have heard from some parents who are impacted because their children either no longer have the service they were getting or the program they were getting, or they are concerned that they will lose it. I think that concern is shared by a local MPP. Catherine Fife is an NDP MPP. She represents Waterloo, and she joins us on the show this morning. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you very much for making the time. I know that some of these concerns have reached your ears as well. What are you hearing around the recent staffing cuts at Kids Ability?
Yeah, we're hearing firsthand from parents who are, one, as you pointed out, they've seen a reduction in services. They know that staff will be leaving. Those staff have very good connections with their children. I mean, these are occupational therapists, speech and language, autism services and support. And so parents are quite rightfully, concerned going forward. I was concerned because this is a growing number now of layoffs. If you read the record earlier this month, Kids Ability said that there wouldn't be any impact on services. And so what we are seeing is a direct impact. And this is a concern that I'm hearing in my office, as is, I should say, MPP Clancy as well.
You have asked the Auditor General for an audit of Kids Ability. What's behind that request?
So this is basically a transparency ask, right? I mean, if you go through the public accounts, Mike, as I did, since 2021 to 2025, there has been an increase in funding from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. So there's a few things that don't add up here. If ministry funding is coming into Kids Ability, why then so many layoffs? There's there is a concern in the community because Kids Ability has always been about people. I mean, the former CEO, Linda Kenny, she taught me this, that, this is a place where you invest in people, because when those people feel well supported, they support kids. And when kids are supported in our community, we have a stronger community. So Kids Ability has a special place in my heart. I feel for these parents, because Kids Ability does offer hope for the future of their children so that they can reach their potential. And when I did have a conversation with the CEO of Kids Ability, she reported to me that, Kids Ability is well supported by the ministry. So then why so many layoffs? And I think an audit will get to the bottom of that, and we'll have a better sense of, what the needs in the community are and where's the disconnect there.
Do we know when the audit will take place?
No, the Auditor General takes in requests. Even if I don't get into this year's audit, though, I will get next year's. And that actually may be a more valuable audit because it'll paint the picture of the reduction in staff. So we're still waiting for that. But it's an important, first step, I think, right? I mean, if an agency is receiving provincial dollars, then there is an expectation that transparency is going to be there. And, as the MPP for Waterloo, I'm amplifying those voices of parents and those kids locally and also at the provincial level. So I've had conversations with the minister. He's looking for transparency as well. So I think that this is actually something that he and I can work together on.
And you alluded earlier, Catherine, to the role really that Kids Ability plays in this community. I mean, they've been a cornerstone, for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, Kids Ability is well supported by the community because we know that it's very special. And this is a well-educated community, Mike. Like, we know that with early intervention, you can change the trajectory of a child's life. So when you look at Kids Ability, and there does seem to be a shift away from those frontline services, this is something that causes the community concern, right? The foundation, I just want to say, they do amazing work. Like, there's great people on the board, and they raise a lot of money to sort of fill in some of those gaps. My job as the MPP is to look at the provincial allocation and follow the money.
While I have you here this morning, Catherine, and I know this Kids Ability story is an important one, and I'm glad we could talk more about it. There's also another important story in the community. We were just talking about it on the show before the 10 o'clock news, and that is the verdict on Friday in the Jeffrey Sloka sexual assault trial, acquitted on all charges. You are bringing forward, again, connected to that, Lydia's Law. Can you tell us more about Lydia's Law?
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to say I was there and I heard the verdict on Friday, and I think many of us were expecting to be disappointed because women are not well served by the courts in Ontario, but a full acquittal was completely devastating. And I just want to give a shout out to the Sexual Assault Center. They're doing the heavy lifting on this. And also, they are one of those agencies that are very much, underfunded. I do want to say, so Lydia's Law, for those of you who don't know, this is a piece of legislation that was informed and inspired by a local constituent who experienced a sexual assault, and then went through a horrific 2-year court case where she felt that she was re-traumatized along the way. And our court systems in Ontario are not serving this population very well. So Lydia's Law holds the Attorney General to account, asking him to follow through on why the court cases are so delayed, why legal advice is not being given, and then ensuring that some counseling and mental health supports are provided along the way. And then he has to report back to us in the legislature so we can fix the court system, because a strong justice system is key to a strong democracy.
How do we get Lydia's Law into law, Catherine?
That's a really good question, because you'll remember, Mike, that they silenced me last time. That's only happened in 3 times in the history of the province. They did not want to debate Lydia's Law in the legislature. This time I've tried something new. I have 3 male co-sponsors, John Vantoff, Salma Makwa, Terrence Kernahan, because violence against women is not a women's issue. This is a societal issue, and it takes all of us. We are going to be pushing and applying as much pressure as we can. I table the bill on Monday, this upcoming Monday, and Lydia will get a chance to speak this time. And then on the 27th of May, hopefully they let me debate it. I would be surprised if they tried to silence us this time, because the Sloka case has really shone a light on how broken our court system is.
We will continue to watch with interest, and I certainly do appreciate your advocacy in this regard. Catherine, thank you very much for your time on the show this morning.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thanks so much for your time.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye. Catherine Fife is the MPP who represents Waterloo on Lydia's Law. I do remember that silencing the first time around, and the bill never saw the light of day. It will be tabled again on Monday, and as you heard Catherine just say, she does not expect that it will be met with silence or pushed into the background again, and there will be an opportunity to debate it about a month from now, as it should be, right? Because as we have seen again in very recent days, our court system is not serving women particularly well. Just on the note of kids' ability, which, and just full disclosure here, especially with all of the back and forth from one city to another, remote shows, etc., Catherine and I had arranged for this conversation as far back as last Friday. And at that time, the Sloka verdict had not come down, but we arranged for the kids' ability conversation because of this audit she is requesting from Ontario's Auditor General. Lydia's Law obviously comes into play with the more recent news, so we kind of pack the two issues together. But on the kids' ability front, and again, we reported on this on 570 News Radio a couple of weeks ago now, the recent job cuts, and we've heard from some parents who are quite concerned. I have a special place in my heart for not only the organization, but the building itself, Kids Ability, out in Waterloo. And I've heard from parents whose children have benefited. You heard Catherine talk about early intervention and how critical that is for future learning and future development. And when we look at what we know about Kids Ability, the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services funds it to the tune of $25 million. The Kids Ability School Authority receives another $4.5 million from the Ministry of Education. So we're pushing $30 million now in funding. And yet 55 frontline staff, along with some additional employees, had to be cut with claims that service will not be impacted. And it's also worth noting, because these things are made public when they are connected to provincial funding, the salary of the CEO at Kids Ability increased by more than 22% from 2024 to 2025, going from $190,000 a year to $232,000 a year. So I think it is worth asking questions in this regard. As you heard Catherine Fife say, this is really an exercise in transparency. So by all means, let's pull back the curtain on that. Let's be transparent about it. And let's hope that this request is heard by our Auditor General and we get a little bit of a deeper dive into the financial goings on at this organization that has meant over the years so much to this community. And I would submit to you, it continues to mean an awful lot to this community. So appreciate, as I said, the advocacy work being done by Catherine Fife in this regard. She mentioned Ashlyn Clancy as well, the Green MPP who represents Kitchener Centre. Look, just again, to be blunt about it, and it's not intended to be, a diss in any way here, but in opposition, this is what you do, right? You can bring forward things that concern you, get some traction around them, certainly in the public discourse. But the Conservatives here in Ontario have such a strong majority. It's tougher and tougher to move things through. Lydia's Law in particular is going to be an uphill battle for Catherine Fife and the provincial NDP, but we'll see where it goes in light of the Slocum verdict. And hopefully, just as an MPP, the Auditor General isn't playing partisan games here. You don't need a majority to get something onto the Auditor General's radar here. But in Ontario right now, some really interesting times. And we're going to be talking a little bit later this week about Ontario Premier Doug Ford. And I mean, is he getting a little bit too comfortable with this majority and the missteps that are happening along the way? And not the least of which, and most recently is it was bungled communication, wasn't it, around the plane to serve the Ontario government. You could make a business case for it, but the Premier never tried, because why would you have to? You've got all the seats and then some that you need to push through anything that you want. But instead of trying to build the business case and even talking to the public about it, just went and made the decision to buy the jet and then sold the jet right back again. Something's missing here. How about the shots he took at fellow MPP Stephanie Smythe last week? Because she asked a question during question period, which, is what opposition MPPs are supposed to do during question period. And it turned into an attack on Stephanie Smythe, the former journalist, and the way she used to do her previous job. Not really sure what the Premier is dealing with here outside of his political role, but it seems to be maybe a little too comfortable these days for Doug Ford. And you're wondering if that's not contributing to some of the missteps that we've been seeing. We'll be talking about that later in the week on the show, as I mentioned, because there's lots to talk about there, but plenty to talk about this morning as well with Waterloo MPP Catherine Fife, the audit she has requested of the financial dealings of Kids Ability in Waterloo, and her efforts to get Lydia's Law back on the floor of Queen's Park for some debate later on in May. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it is around that time of the day that we pause for a moment and remind you that, not everyone is a jackwagon. We want you to remember that at all times. And this is a listener-submitted story that we'll get to next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Every day on the show around this time, we like to take a little break from the heavier stuff, share a story with you that's a little more on the uplifting side, and the story that reminds you that not everyone is a jackwagon. Sometimes I think we need that reminder because, if you're paying attention, I'm always reminded of a former colleague who hosted a talk show down east with our radio company. And he said, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And listen, when you do pay attention, you get pretty frustrated sometimes, right? Because we don't like this thing, we don't like that other thing. And pretty soon we're going to come up with we're going to come to the conclusion that everyone around us is simply a jackwagon. But it's not the case. And so we do this every day. And I always make the offer to you. Hey, if you know someone who's not a jackwagon, let me know. And our buddy Mike, I affectionately refer to him as producer Mike, sent me this email yesterday and he said, Farwell, this guy is not a jackwagon. So we'll tell you that story today as we begin with the punchy little song that you created for us.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold and fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
It was a couple of weeks ago. I put out the call for a little help, said we needed a punchy song to really introduce this segment. And you came through in spades about 36 hours later. Our own little Not Everyone is a Jackwagon intro song. And in this case, the gentleman who is not a jackwagon is a fellow by the name of Hans Negrath. He was out for a jog with his golden doodle when all of a sudden, as they were running along the waterfront, could have been right here in Windsor. There's a nice waterfront to walk along. And the dog, Benny, very well-behaved dog, always runs right alongside Hans. But in this case, a couple of geese flying into the water, and Benny decided he needed to go after them. So Benny goes into the water, and Hans is all of a sudden thinking, hang on a second, my dog can't swim. And my dog's out there in the water, and I don't know what I'm going to do to get my dog back. So Hans does what I think any dog owner, dog parent would do. Jumped right into that water after Benny and swam out there despite the freezing temperatures. Then he realizes, boy, I might be in trouble myself. I think I'm going to go down. He didn't have enough strength to grab Benny, but he did stay behind him and push his hind legs every time he started to sink. And finally, they got back to the pier together. And then all of a sudden, Hans is like, wait a minute, how do I get out of the water now? So he started to yell for help when passersby stopped by and helped both Hans and Benny out of the frigid water. And everybody, it turned out, was just fine. I believe when Mike sent me that story, and I always ask you to share stories with me, especially if you know somebody around here who's not a jackwagon, by all means, let me know by sending me an email to mike@570news.com. I think Mike meant that the non-jackwagon in this story is Hans, who jumped into the water after his dog. I mean, come on, we'd all do it, right? How about the people that were passing by that stopped to help the guy and his dog get out of the water? Everybody came together just to remind us that not everyone is a jackwagon. That's the kind of story we share on the show every day around this time. Now the time is to get you to the 570 News Center for your 10:30 update. In the next 30 minutes, we are celebrating Youth Week for a very good reason with One Roof Youth Services in the region. And what is the journey of the Monarchs? You'll hear about it next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. There is a new nonprofit event to add to your calendar in about a month's time, a brand new summit aiming to build stronger community connections here in our region will take place. The organizer, Olivia Opara, joins the show this morning. Olivia, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Glad to hear it. It is called the Journey of the Monarchs Summit. What's it all about?
Yes. So, yes, thank you so much. So this summit is the Journey of the Monarchs. It's a not-for-profit, high-impact professional summit happening on May 30th in Cambridge at the Cambridge Portuguese Club. So we're bringing together over 200 professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders for an experience focused on growth, opportunity, and connection. It's not just a typical conference. It's designed to be intentional. So we have powerful speakers lined up, panel discussions, structured networking that helps people build real relationships. Some people there will even have the opportunity to pitch their business or business idea. And we're also conveying topics like leadership, entrepreneurship, community building, and how to adapt in today's fast-changing world, especially with AI. A few people will even have the opportunity to win some mentorship from experts in LinkedIn branding and business growth. And we're also closing with a great big buffet dinner to create a more relaxed space for meaningful conversation.
The name of the event and the nonprofit really caught my attention, Olivia. Journey of the Monarchs. Why that name?
So the story behind the name, it actually comes from the monarch butterfly. So there's a special group of monarch butterflies called the super generation. And while most monarch butterflies will actually just live a few weeks, this generation can live up to 9 months because they travel over 3,000 miles to Mexico, a place they've never been, purely on instinct. They delay comfort, prepare differently, and move with purpose. So that really reflects the people we're building this event for. Professionals and entrepreneurs who are navigating their own journey, building towards something bigger than their current environment. And so this event is basically for the super generation, people who are meant for more and willing to do what they need to grow.
I mentioned at the outset, Olivia, and having read some of the literature surrounding this event, that it's about building stronger community connections here in the region. What was it that you identified as missing that inspired you to organize this summit?
Yeah, so my husband and I really noticed a gap in these types of events. We always seem to have to go to Toronto to meet more people who are really trying to grow and learn more about business and entrepreneurship and all those things, when there's so many talented, driven people right here in the Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge region. And a lot of time we just don't have access to those types of rooms here. So we wanted to provide a place where people could have the right conversations, meet the right people, have the right opportunities, and really have an opportunity to grow and make an impact.
What do you hope people get out of their attendance at the summit?
We're hoping that people will walk away with meaningful connections. People will walk away feeling like they're ready to take charge for their next step, whether it be towards that business that they have been stuck or unsure what next move to make, towards growth for their career, and really with actionable steps, and also with people in their corner who are trying to do the same. They're going to have an opportunity to speak with real industry leaders who have walked the walk. We're even going to have breakout rooms where they have the opportunity to speak one-on-one with people who are CEOs of tech companies, AI founders, business leaders. So be able to get that practical insight that can help a lot of people who maybe don't know what to do next to take that next step, or to build that community around them where they're ready to grow and do more.
You mentioned the date, May the 30th. That's a Saturday. The Portuguese Club in Cambridge is the place. And I get a little bit of the sense of it there. You talk about those breakout rooms, the buffet dinner at the end that you had mentioned, a really good chance just to, relax at the end of a day. Can you walk us through, Olivia, what the day looks like?
Yeah, for sure. So we're having registration starts at 1 p.m. and then the event will commence at 2. And we'll be having 3 speakers as well as a panel discussion. And then throughout the day, there'll also be an opportunity for people who are interested to, in front of this room of over 200 people, to pitch their current business or their business idea and to get real-time feedback from business coaches who do this for a living. So it'll allow people to have that opportunity to really get out there what they are trying to achieve. There will be time for intentional networking. And then when we're closing at the end, we'll have the breakout sessions where people can speak with the speakers that they related to, or maybe they have more questions for. We'll also have an open Q&A time throughout the day as well, and some breaks where people can connect. And then after dinner, there'll be about 2 hours that people can stay behind if they want and continue to network.
How can people get involved if they're so inclined?
Yeah, for sure. So if they go to journeyofthemonarchs.com, you can see more information there about the event. There's a link there to purchase tickets as well. We're also on Instagram at Journey of the Monarchs, where you'll be able to see some of the speakers' interviews beforehand and learn a lot more about the event. And we would be happy to speak with anyone. If they have any questions, they're welcome to reach out there.
Olivia, it sounds great. I'm all for building stronger connections in this community, and I hope the summit is a resounding success. Thanks very much for joining the show this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Olivia Opara is the organizer of the Journey of the Monarchs Summit. You can learn more just by going to the website, journeyofthemonarchs.com. It's taking place on Saturday, the 30th of May at the Portuguese Club in Cambridge, and lots of space there created with intention so that you'll have the opportunity to network, to learn more about building your own brand and or business, one-on-one conversations with leaders in our community, and just a way to build some stronger connections across the region. Again, journeyofthemonarchs.com is the website that you can visit for more information, or if you would like to participate on May the 30th at the Portuguese Club in Cambridge. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Youth Week is coming up, and that marks the beginning of something very important for One Roof Youth Services in our community. We'll tell you what that's about coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, we are fast approaching Youth Week. Just a quick note. Hey, youth, you will fast approach old age, too. It sneaks up on you, let me tell you, says the old guy with the creaky knees and sore back these days. Youth Week also means big things for One Roof Youth Services in our community. The executive director at One Roof is Andrea Ferguson, who joins the show this morning. Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Always good for the chance to chat. And I know that Youth Week means the beginning of fundraising efforts for you. What will be happening between May 1st and 7th for you at One Roof?
Yeah, we've got a whole fun week of events planned, a whole bunch of stuff happening in-house, and then a lot of collaborations out in our community. So we're kicking off the week with a collab with Berry Beer and Beans up in Waterloo. They're making an amazing smoothie bowl for us, and all week, the proceeds from that smoothie bowl will be coming back to One Roof, so May 1st through 7th. We also have a flash day going on at Blackthorn Tattoo down in Cambridge. You can come out and support us that day, get some fresh ink. We have our big walkathon on Thursday where we challenge groups to walk together and work together to raise funds for One Roof. And everybody can just walk anywhere at any time that day. It's really easy to participate in that one. And then closing out the week, we have a really special Plates with Purpose dinner at the Boathouse in Victoria Park, where we plan to share, our future plans for One Roof Services and what we've been up to the last few years. And, if you haven't been yet, you've got to check out the patio there. It's the best one in Kitchener, if I say so.
No, you know what? It's hard to disagree, Andrea. You're right. There's something about being right on the water, isn't there?
It is. Yeah. You can't beat that breeze.
Exactly. You mentioned something that I think would be important for folks to kind of wrap their heads around, and that is what you've been up to these last few years at One Roof Youth Services. I'm sure Many folks recognize the name of the agency, but what do you do there, and what have you been up to these last few years?
Yeah, we've been, growing and expanding our programming so that we can offer all sorts of wraparound services to youth ages 16 to 25 in our community who are at risk of or experiencing homelessness. So everything from, ID clinics to our emergency shelter to even our supportive housing building here where youth can come and live and get all the resources they need to find independence.
These fundraising events that are coming up as part of Youth Week, which begins on May the 1st, running through the 7th, how critical are those to continue the operations that you do at One Roof?
Yeah, honestly, this is what keeps our doors open every day, especially things like our daytime services. That is completely funded by the community. So support like this is really what makes sure that we can be here 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the youth that need us.
When it comes to those youth that do need you, Andrea, what are we seeing of late in terms of demand?
You know what? It's just getting busier. I hate to say it, but, we're seeing more and more kids. We're seeing younger kids showing up, needing our services, needing our resources. And I'm just so grateful that we can be here and, provide those.
How are we as a community able to support the work that you do at One Roof?
Yeah, so obviously, monetary donations, donations of goods. We're always looking for, shoes and coats and clothes for youth. If you've got gently used stuff, donations of toilet paper go a long way around here. And then, of course, volunteers, if you want to come out and help us out that week or any time of year, we'd love to have you.
Andrea, appreciate the work that you do and the time that you've made for us on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Andrea Ferguson is the executive director at One Roof Youth Services. Did you know that Youth Week is just around the corner? It begins May the 1st, which is Friday already. Wrap your head around that, running through May the 7th. And that also means the beginning of spring fundraising efforts at One Roof Youth Services. So this coming Saturday, the 2nd, there's going to be a flash fundraiser at Blackthorn Tattoo in Cambridge. Then on Sunday, an Instagram giveaway in partnership with the Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory. Next Wednesday, so 1 week tomorrow, is a Youth Week walkathon. You heard Andrea mention that it applies to anyone, anywhere around the community to participate in those steps. Next Thursday, Live Lush at St. Jacob's Market is donating 15% of all sales to One Roof Youth Services. And then next Thursday evening, Plates with Purpose, a dining event at the Boathouse in downtown Kitchener, which I cannot disagree with Ms. Ferguson. It is probably the best patio that we've got in town these days, because say what you will about the quote unquote lake at Victoria Park, but come on with your coming on. It's a great place to be on the water and enjoy a meal. So all of that in support of One Roof Youth Services. You may have heard the name of the organization from time to time over the years here. They are one of the beneficiaries from the annual Hockey Helps the Homeless tournament and doing some great work in a space where we have young people in need of that roof over their heads or other supports, because we know that homelessness is not only a crisis, but it does not discriminate. We've talked to agencies in our community that are dealing with seniors who are suddenly finding themselves struggling to maintain shelter. And the other end of that demographic spectrum applies as well, with youth who are also in need. And that's the gap that One Roof Youth Services tries to fill. Just as I think about the fact and wrap my head around the idea that this Friday marks the first day of May. Like, how did this happen? It seems to be, the time anyway, just flying by. Although I will add to that, it's nice that it's only raining today, right? Because boy, oh boy, it seems to have been a long time for the nicer weather to get here, but we are into more mild conditions. I was reading a story in my weekend paper about down in Newfoundland, St. John's, I'm pretty sure is where it was. And they had a late April snowstorm, and people were digging out their driveways again and getting their cars out so they could get to work, because, late April, even in Newfoundland, I don't think you're expecting to have that kind of weather, but we've just been beaten up. I was telling you earlier today about the city of Guelph going $1.9 million over budget with its snow maintenance budget this past winter. We seem to have finally crossed that bridge and gotten into milder weather and more rain than snow. But May, just around the corner. And I think that makes it worth reminding you that the month of May, historically, traditionally, for these past dozen years, going back to 2014, the month of May has signaled the beginning of the annual Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign in support of cystic fibrosis research. And because I am here today in Windsor, where the Kitchener Rangers are playing a playoff series with the Windsor Spitfires, this hockey season is going a little bit long. I mean, we've got a game 5 on Friday night at the Memorial Auditorium. That might be the last game of this series. It might not. So this series could go into next week even. And if the Rangers, I always get nervous saying things like this out loud, because I'm way more superstitious than a guy needs to be, especially a guy that has zero impact on the outcome of any of the games. But can I tell you, I love my Kitchener Rangers. So anyway, if the Rangers are able to get past the Windsor Spitfires in this series, then they will continue playing into mid-May. And oh my goodness gracious, if they're successful in the series after this one, well, then there's even more hockey still to be played, which is all the long and cautious way of saying that with the month of May being right around the corner and the traditional Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign happening in that same month, I thought, I just, as much as I would like to be, I can't be in two places at once. Like, I'm in Windsor right now. I'm not home in Waterloo region where I could be doing the things I usually do for Farwell for Hire. So this year we have moved the campaign into the month of June just to make sure there is no overlap with hockey. When hockey ends, if it's not yet June, I guess I'll just rest and get ready for the big month of fundraising. But nonetheless, June is the month this year. We will be doing the work that we do to raise money for cystic fibrosis research. And yes, I know I'm allowed to tell you that will, of course, include a 50-50 raffle. So stay tuned for that and learning more about it right here on your favorite radio station. Last year, we gave away more than $120,000, if memory serves. So we'll have all kinds of information on that. We've got events already starting up. Local businesses are getting involved. We're looking to do as much as we can that has the greatest community impact. So we've got a butter tart baker on board. We're going to do some deep fried asparagus again. I'm going to be making some smash burgers at a local butcher shop. It's lots of things will be going on through the month of June, along with that 50-50 raffle. If you'd like to be a part of it, by all means, drop me an email. Maybe we can connect on an event and bring a lot of people together and spread awareness and raise some more money for cystic fibrosis research. And another way that you can support is to join us at our launch party on Thursday, June the 4th. We're going to gather at Block 3 Brewing in St. Jacobs, and that Block 3 is making a beer, and donations, proceeds of the sale, a portion of proceeds of the sale of that beer will be donated to cystic fibrosis research. They've done this every year. Block 3 was our first business partner in our campaign, so we'll launch our campaign there. It'll be a night of some beverages, some food, some music. We'll have silent auction there, and you're welcome to come. So just check out the Facebook page, Farwell, 4 Hire, and get a ticket. Join us and come for the launch party, and then help us raise money for cystic fibrosis research through the month of June this year as opposed to May. Got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then we will speak to a relative of one of the complainants in the Jeffrey Sloka sexual assault trial. Acquitted of all charges on Friday. How are the families feeling? You'll hear next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It is a story that we have been following through our morning today on the show because the verdict came down on Friday after we had already gone off the air, and we were not on the air yesterday as we had a travel day to get here to Windsor for the Kitchener Rangers game last night. The story that we have been following is that of former neurologist from Kitchener, Jeffrey Sloka, accused in almost 4 dozen cases of sexual assault of patients. And on Friday, the judge in the case found Jeffrey Sloka not guilty on all counts. He was acquitted of all charges. Worth noting that he will no longer be practicing as a physician because he never reapplied for registration in this province after his license was revoked. But that changes little, if anything, for those who came forward in this case and those who are feeling the weight of Friday's verdict. One of those who is clearly feeling the weight is our next guest, Brittany Wellington, who is a relative of one of the survivors in this case and an advocate on their behalf. Brittany, good morning, and thank you for making time for the show.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate this time that you've been able to make for us today because obviously I'm sure this still reverberates in your life, your family's life. But what was your reaction Friday, Brittany, when you heard this decision?
Our reaction as a family, I think, can only be described as despondent. We were absolutely horrified to see that he was acquitted on all 48 counts. We never could have imagined that this was going to be the verdict, to the point that myself, my other sisters, my sister, who is a part of this case, her husband, we all went to work expecting that we were going to receive the verdict we were looking for, and we were horribly wrong.
This case dragged on for some time with various delays along the way. What was it like dealing with that lengthy ordeal as a family?
I think I can speak for my sister when I say that it was extremely traumatizing. To have to continually receive updates from the court system about delays is very stressful. Every time an email would come in, it would bring up old wounds. It would bring up memories of this trial. And it took such a long time that my sister was able to relocate provinces, get married, have a child, and that child has since turned 1.
That just goes to show how long this was in court. And as you said, Brittany, when you went to work on Friday, you fully expected the decision from the court to be a different one. So where do you as a family go from here? How do you begin the process of healing?
I think at this point, we've kind of taken the weekend to just settle in with this news. We're very happy to see the outcry in the community and very appreciative that people seem to be on the same page as us in terms of how upset they are about this verdict. We, as sisters, have already been working with Catherine Fife. We were working with her before this verdict because it had taken so long to put our names and our experience behind her bill, Lydia's Law. So the next step for us is to try to get into the Ontario legislature and make some changes to the criminal justice system because it has obviously failed us in this case. We need to see shorter times for these kinds of cases. We need to see more support for sexual assault survivors, and we need to see the limits removed on the therapy that they can receive. My sister was instrumental in getting the cap removed of 5 years for this particular case, and we would like to see that cap removed across all cases.
Is there any regret at this point, Brittany, given the length of the ordeal that, and I know I'm asking you to speak on behalf of this, your sister, but in the family, like the conversations around, geez, I wish I'd never come forward or something like that?
I think, initially there was some regret because we really felt like, what was the point of this? My sister was instrumental in coming forward initially and having Sloka's license revoked. So that is certainly not for nothing. And we are very pleased that he is not going to be practicing medicine ever again. I think it speaks to the fact that he didn't appeal, that there are, obviously some admittance of guilt in this sense. But yes, initially there was a huge outpouring of why would anybody go forward with this? Women are so rarely believed to begin with, and this really put that nail in the coffin. That being said, we certainly are not going down without a fight. We're hopeful that there will be an appeals process, and if we can use this situation to change legislation going forward, then that's what we will do.
How has this entire ordeal, the case, the length of time it's taken to get to the verdict, the unexpected, shocking verdict, if you will, how has this impacted your lives for these last 5 years?
I think it has just always been something that's been at the back of our minds. We are a family of all girls. We're a family of outspoken women. And, we really thought that we were going to be able to move the dial on this. But for my sister specifically, having to live with this in the back of her mind, having to have a child and know that this hasn't been resolved, having to have a daughter and know that this hasn't been resolved has been so traumatizing. And especially in these last couple days after getting this verdict, we have all felt this in our bodies, in the community. We couldn't be more distraught about what has happened here.
What would your message be to anyone else who has experienced anything similar about coming forward and making their concerns public?
I think these women need to know that they are extremely brave for coming forward. It takes an immense amount of courage to come forward, especially when these are the verdicts. I would say to women, do what you are comfortable with. You have to take care of yourself first. Find the supports. There's incredible supports in this community with SASC and Women's Crisis Service. Find those supports. Find a community that will support you. My sister's very fortunate that we have a very wide net and a very large community that is behind her, and we're not going to rest until we see some justice in some way. But I feel that women need to do whatever they're comfortable with. The more we speak out, the more they can't ignore us. And I think that's where we're at as a community and as a society right now.
You just mentioned, Brittany, see some justice in some way. What does justice look like to you in this regard?
I think at this point, this case aside, making sure that when other women come forward, that their cases are heard in a timely manner and they receive justice in a timely manner, which is what Lydia's Law is proposing. The government received an Auditor General report in 2019 with recommendations for this that they have not implemented. It is now 2026. Women need to be taken seriously and their cases need to be heard quickly. Over 5 years, my sister testified in 2021. To have to wait this long is absolute insanity. And then to wait this long and essentially be called a liar is so much worse.
How are you and the family doing today? I know it's still early days since Friday's verdict, but how is everybody doing?
We have fully mobilized. We have sent out emails. We've contacted people that we can. I think the emotions are very raw. I'm an elementary school teacher. I'm currently taking this phone call from my car because it's a very noisy environment. And it is hard to do my job and have this situation happen. My sister, she has a young child who has been sick. She's quite sick at the moment. And it's very challenging to know that this is the situation and to fight for this justice and also continue on with your day-to-day life. We're sad and we're grieving, but we plan to take action.
Brittany, I really appreciate the time you made on the show for us today. To you and the family, be as well as you can be. And thank you very much for speaking with us about this.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you taking our call and putting this at the forefront of your program today.
Happy to do so. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, bye-bye. Brittany Wellington is the sister of one of the complainants in this case that had all charges acquitted. Jeffrey Sloka, the former neurologist, faced almost 4 dozen complaints of sexual assault against patients. And on Friday, in a ruling that read more than 1,000 pages in length, the judge in the case determined that the evidence presented was not entirely, if at all, credible. Interestingly, the only person called by the defense was Jeffrey Sloka himself, and the judge determined that Jeffrey Sloka fully believed that the procedures he was initiating on patients were necessary for their healing journey, sought consent at every turn, and here we are today. The shockwaves, I think, continue to reverberate in the community. We had Catherine Fife on the show about an hour ago talking about, among other things, Lydia's Law, which you heard Brittany make reference to here, getting these cases through the courts more quickly. I can only imagine the difficulty in coming forward, just for starters, and then how much more difficult it is to come forward and share stories like this when the prospect of this being drawn out over many years sits before you. We've gone more than 5 years in this particular case. The only saving grace, I would think, and I can only say this as a complete outsider from, the real difficulty that so many are going through here. Again, close to 4 dozen different complaints. But the only saving grace, as far as I can see, is that Jeffrey Sloka will not be able to practice medicine, or whatever version of it he was practicing, any longer, because his license was revoked and he has not applied to have it reinstated. As I said on the show earlier today, and I think you know this about me if you've listened to the show for more than 5 minutes, I am a rule of law guy. I do believe in the importance of our courts and their interpretations and upholding of our laws, but this one is a difficult one. And we know, it's a well-worn phrase for a reason, justice is blind. When we talked about this on the show earlier with Jennifer Hutton, the CEO at Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region, she reminded us that the acquittal in this case does not necessarily mean that there was no guilt or offense. What it means is that whatever was presented by the prosecution did not pass the test of beyond a reasonable doubt, I suppose. Very difficult to digest this one after the ruling was issued on Friday. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Initially, there was a huge outpouring of why would anybody go forward with this? Women are so rarely believed to begin with, and this really put that nail in the coffin. That being said, we certainly are not going down without a fight. We're hopeful that there will be an appeals process, and if we can use this situation to change legislation going forward, then that's what we will do.
That is Brittany Wellington, who is the sister of one of the women who came forward in the Jeffrey Sloka sexual assault case. They will continue to advocate, Brittany says, for change in our court system. I always hesitate, as you know, to call it a justice system because I think justice is subjective. Justice to you may look or feel different than justice to me, but we do have a court system. We are upheld by the rule of law, but the finding on Friday, the verdict of not guilty on all charges for former neurologist Jeffrey Sloka, is difficult for many of us to wrap our heads around, and I include myself in that many. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Dan is with us on the show this morning. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Mike. I hope you're doing well. Pleasure to talk to you.
I am, thanks. Yeah, good to talk to you.
I just wanted to say I'm not going to speak of guilt or innocence or anything like that, but I do really feel for these women. And I just find it hard to believe that that many women would come forward, based on how difficult it must be. And I have no idea, but I'm just saying how many women came forward. It's beyond me. I know it came down to, proving their case, but I just find it, like you said, justice and the law are two different things. And unfortunately, in this case, these women didn't get any justice. Mike, thank you.
Yeah, Dan, appreciate the call. I would concur, as much as I said a moment ago that justice to you may look or feel differently. Dan and I seem to be of like mind when it comes to quote unquote justice in this case. And I think it's a great point. The sheer number of complainants. I don't think that's an accident by any stretch. And I will also just say, hey, two dudes sitting here on the radio talking about this today may not be eminently qualified, but again, from our own perspective, the best that we can provide, guys like Dan and I, just, considering, giving thought to how difficult it must have been. It is, we know this, to come forward and share the story in the first place, and then to have this be the outcome. I cannot imagine truly the devastation that one must feel. Lawrence is also with us on the show this morning. Lawrence, good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I just had a thought listening to your show and about these poor women in this case. Could there have been, or is there a relationship between the judge and the, of course, accused? Could there be? I'm just thinking.
I am very confident when I say no, sir, not a chance.
Not a chance. Okay.
Nope.
Well, I just wanted to say you do a wonderful job. I love your show.
Lawrence, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening and thanks for calling in today.
Okay. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye-bye. The note on my screen said Lawrence is a first-time caller. Welcome aboard, my friend. If I had my bell, I would ring it for you, but I'm in the remote studios, and by remote studios, I mean my hotel room in Windsor, where we are with the Kitchener Rangers. So I don't have all of my bells and whistles, literal bells with me, but I love me some first-time callers. I love me some regular callers. We'll hear from you during the talkback hour-ish, noon to 1 today. We wanted to make room for Brittany in this segment to share her story because that's important stuff. So we have shifted a segment. We're going to introduce you to the patriotic millionaires at noon today. And maybe that'll be a catalyst for some conversation during the remaining of the 12 to 1 hour when we get into Talkback. The reason, of course, I'm in Windsor is because the Kitchener Rangers are playing here. They lost Game 3 of their series with the Spitfires last night. Game 4 goes tomorrow here in Windsor. And while we are here in Windsor, back there, home where you are, the KW Titans will play for all the Basketball Super League marbles. It's Game 5, the deciding game in the Basketball Super League Championship between the KW Titans and the Sudbury Five tomorrow night at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. So you can watch some basketball and keep your ear on the radio, you see, and keep up with the Kitchener Rangers at the same time. But go Titans as they try to close out the Basketball Super League with a championship this year. Game 5 tomorrow night at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then what is the clothing closet in Guelph and why you should know about it. Coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It is a place known as the Clothing Closet in Guelph, and it is open to serve you good quality clothing in a thrift store environment. The coordinator at the Clothing Closet in Guelph is Bethany Klassen, who joins our show this morning. Bethany, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for making the time. Can you tell us more about the Clothing Closet? How long has it been operating? What do you do there?
Sure. So the Clothing Closet is a ministry run by New Life CRC in Guelph. It's set up like a thrift store in our basement, but there are no price tags. Everything is free. We've been running for close to 30 years now, since 1999. We want to offer the community good quality, gently used clothes free of charge. Part of our motto is we want to reduce waste by reusing clothing. We want to offer people dignity and hope. We care about every person who enters our doors. We want them to feel welcomed and supported while they shop for clothing.
That is quite the history dating back to 99. What was it then that motivated you to get this venture off the ground?
So the church, New Life, purchased the building from a previous church, a Baptist church. They were running the Clothing Closet, but it was a much smaller operation. And when New Life took over, they decided to expand it and expand it out to the whole community, Guelph, and other people from Kitchener and et cetera. And the motivation was just to help people with their budgets and to show love and care to the people of Guelph.
I can only imagine that in current times, the demand may be even greater. But what kind of demand do you see at the Clothing Closet?
So in 2025, we had approximately 3,500 visits. Some of those were repeat visits from approximately 940 shoppers. So the demand is there. We consistently see people coming in every week. We would also love to increase that number for 2026. The community has been very generous with us this past winter, donating clothes. And so now we're reaching out and encouraging more individuals and families to come shop with us. We have a lot of great gently used clothing that's available, and we want to share that with people.
So what do I need to know, Bethany, if I do want to come shopping with you at the Clothing Closet?
So all you need to do is bring one piece of government ID. No proof of income is required. We want to stress that. Please come as you are. Come to 400 Victoria Road North in Guelph and enter through the front doors of the church. We have registration volunteers who will be happy to help you sign up, give you a membership card. You're allowed to come shop with us once every 2 weeks. And while you wait for your number to be called to go down and shop, you can enjoy free tea, coffee, and snacks in our cafe area.
What are the hours?
So we're open to shoppers on Thursdays from 9 a.m. is when you can come in through the doors. 9:30 is when the shopping starts till 12. And then again, we're open in the evenings from 5 to 7.
How can the community support the work that you do at the Clothing Closet, Bethany?
So there's several ways. You can donate clothing if you have any gently used clothes, if you have linens, if you have shoes. You can always check our website for most up-to-date information regarding our donation hours, but in general, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays from 9:30 to 2:30 are the best for dropping off clothes. You can also tell your friends, your neighbors, anyone in your community that you know that the Clothing Closet is here to help you and take some pressure off your finances. Those are the main ways the community can support us.
You mentioned a website. What is the website that we can check out?
So it's newlifecrc.net, and you can also look it up as newlifecrc.net/in-the-community to read about the Clothing Closet.
newlifecrc.net. It is the Clothing Closet, operating now for close to 30 years. As someone who is as involved with this as you are, what do you take away from the work that the Clothing Closet does for the community, Bethany?
So the main takeaway I have is that there are a lot of people that are blessed by the Clothing Closet. There are people that come in that thank us for what we do, that tell us they feel like they are supported and that they are encouraged, that they don't have as much stress, that they can focus on going to job interviews, or they can focus on taking care of their family, and we've taken some pressure off their budget. And then the other thing that I also want to mention is I'm so thankful for the group of volunteers that we have. They are wonderful. They come in every week with smiles on their faces. They are very dedicated. They love the shoppers. They love working together in this community. And also, I want to thank all the people that donate clothing to us each week. We wouldn't be able to do it without our community that gives donations, and we also couldn't do it without our volunteers that give so generously of their time. And so it really is a group effort, and I'm just so appreciative of everyone that chips in and does a great job so that we can deliver this amazing service to everyone every Thursday.
Bethany, I really appreciate the time that you've given us on the show today and the work that you are doing there at the clothing closet in Guelph. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bethany Klassen is the coordinator of the clothing closet in Guelph, operating out of the Christian Reformed Church on Victoria Road, 400 Victoria Road. As Bethany told us, open on Thursday from 9:30 until noon, and then again from 5 until 7. You can learn more by visiting newlifecrc.net, but operating now for almost 30 years. And I'm just thinking about this whole idea. So obviously, thrifting is, I would say, as popular as it's ever been. In this case, it's like going to even a thrift store, but there are no price tags. You just go in and you shop for what you need, and what you need is there and provided by donations through the community. And one of the ideas behind the initiative is to reduce waste, of course. And I'm sure you've heard of fast fashion, right? And how quickly we find ourselves moving from one article of clothing to the next. I mean, it's practically designed that way these days. And so if we can return that clothing into the economy in some way, and somebody else can benefit from it, and maybe even wear it longer than we wear it when it comes to fast fashion, right? So much the better. I actually, this came into my mind some years ago now, and I'm sure I wasn't the first. And I know this is already happening in so many different ways, right? Like we've got tool lending libraries now where, communities kind of pool their resources. And if you need a tool for this, that, or the other thing, you kind of rent it out from the library or borrow it from the space. We've got woodworking shops that we can go to. We've got initiatives like the clothing closet. But has it ever occurred to you, and I know this is tantamount to sacrilege in some regards, especially on a private radio station that relies on revenue. But have you ever thought that there's already been enough stuff built, made, whatever, and if we just had this like circular economy where it just kept going, like I'm done with this thing, now you have this thing, or you need that thing, you don't have to buy that thing new because I've got it and you can borrow it. Have you ever thought that like if you really needed that chainsaw, how many people on your street do you think have the chainsaw that they might be able to lend to you? Of course, then you break the chainsaw and you got bad blood between your neighbors. You know what I'm getting at, though. And I'll stop saying sacrilegious things on a radio station that relies on advertising revenue. But sometimes I just think all the stuff, it's there. If you know 4 or 5 people, you can probably find the stuff that you need within those 4 or 5 different garages or basements. Just a hunch I've long had. And in this particular case, I love the idea because we know that we move through the clothing pretty darn quickly, and we can help out with the clothing closet in Guelph, which has been supporting the community for almost 30 years now. Speaking of supporting the community, did you do what I did this morning? Yeah, I did a thing even here on the road. I'll bet you have done it too. Maybe you even did it yesterday already. And when you do it, you're helping out agencies in our community. We'll tell you more about that thing that I bet you've already done coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us. This is 570 News Radio. Well, I told you before the break that I did it this morning, and I'll bet you did too. Maybe you even did it yesterday, because yesterday is when they started to appear once again. Yes, they are back. They being the smile cookies at your favorite coffee stop in the morning. And I went to said coffee shop just around the corner from my hotel here in Windsor, grabbed myself a nice cup of joe and a smile cookie while I was at it. I hope you know that these smile cookies help out charitable organizations in our community. So as much as I want to support at home, because that's where my heart is, of course, even here in Windsor, I knew when I bought the smile cookie, I'm helping out some charities here. But when you buy those smile cookies at home, there are 3 organizations in particular that are benefiting, and a couple of them join me this morning. Elaine Capagines is the Director of Development and Communications at Nutrition for Learning. Elaine, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you so much for having us.
It is an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being here. Sarah Tews joins us as well. And Sarah is the Development Manager at the Cambridge Food Bank. Sarah, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Elaine, if I could start with you just a little bit more about Nutrition for Learning so folks understand the work that you do there. What's Nutrition for Learning all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nutrition for Learning, we're based in Waterloo Region. We serve 180 schools across the region, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, our rural neighbors, and we provide meals to students. No questions asked. If a student needs a meal in a school and they have a Nutrition for Learning program, they are able to access a variety of proteins, fresh produce, grains. And yeah, we provide, we're just over 2 million meals provided in the schools every single school year.
Sarah, when it comes to the Cambridge Food Bank, I know we understand why a food bank is there and how it operates, but Cambridge does a couple of really interesting things because having been into your building, it's almost like a little bit of a shopping area. And I know you've got a mobile produce truck that goes out as well.
Yeah, so of course we offer emergency food assistance to folks living in Cambridge and North Dumfries. Right now we're offering distributing about 2,000 hampers every month. So the need is definitely there. On top of that, though, a lot of people don't know that we have a lot of other programs as well, all focused around building health and belonging through food education and advocacy. We have children's wellness programs. We have seniors wellness programs. We do have our mobile food market, which it's a market on wheels that travels around to at least 14 different stops in Cambridge, North Dumfries each week and sells produce at a very affordable price. This is offered to everyone, not just folks who are food insecure. So anyone who can benefit from having nutritious food and taking a little bit off the top of their grocery budget.
Now, Sarah, when it comes to funding, how does the Cambridge Food Bank operate in that regard?
The majority of our funding is from individuals and businesses. We are very fortunate to have a generous community here and a really strong donor base. Places like Tim Hortons and larger corporations like this, when they pledge to keep these dollars in the local communities, it makes a huge difference. It brings the greater community together to support our neighbors in need.
Elaine, what about Nutrition for Learning when it comes to the funding model? What does it look like there?
Yeah, similar. So the vast majority of our funding does come from our community, so through individual donations as well as our corporate partners. We are very lucky to have some federal and provincial and ministry funding as well. It does account for about 30% of our total operating budget, and the rest of that 70% is made by communities and including donations like the Smile Cookies from Tim Hortons.
I'm glad Sarah had mentioned keeping this money local when it comes to the Smile Cookie program, because we know we can, like, here I am in Windsor and I'm getting a Smile Cookie here, and we've got Smile Cookies that we're getting at our favorite Tim's back home. And there is a person, and almost always a local person, behind that franchise. In fact, just as we were picking up an order before the hockey game yesterday, we met the owner of the franchise here in Windsor, who, by the way, admitted she's a Kitchener Rangers fan. So I'll just put that out there. But there was the local Windsorite, who owns the franchise that we were shopping at, and she was very grateful for the large order from a hockey team that was coming in. So don't forget that there are local people and local families behind these individual Tim Hortons franchises. So, Elaine, when it comes to the Smile Cookies, what does this funding that you will receive through the program mean to Nutrition for Learning?
Absolutely. It is one of our single largest donations that we receive every year. And we're so grateful that this has been an ongoing partnership that we've had with Tim Hortons. We are really focusing on elevating the food experience at schools. Since the pandemic, a lot of the schools have gone to a grab and go model of single packaged items, which makes a lot of sense for some of the programs. But we do think that there's just a huge opportunity for more local foods, more fresh foods, engaging with local farmers. There's some food education piece in there when students learn. We've been in schools where a student will pick up an orange for the first time and try to bite it because they've never had a fresh piece of fruit before where they know how to peel it. So the more fresh items that we can get into the schools, we also are really focused on bringing in some DIY options. So we have, for example, we have a DIY yogurt parfait station that we're able to host at some of our schools. And the students then have some autonomy over the types of foods that they want to try. So, they can try, we've had students trying coconut for the first time. One of my favorite interactions I had with a student at a yogurt parfait station was she put some coconut on her yogurt and she says, "Oh, this reminds me of home." She's like, "I'm from the Philippines. We eat a lot of coconut. I haven't had any since we came to Canada." So just these opportunities for students to be more engaged with the food is just super important to us. And that's what kind of the next round of funding from Tim Hortons is specifically going to go to, is to help just elevate that food experience in the schools.
That's great stories. Sarah, at the Cambridge Food Bank, what about the funding there? What does it help you do?
Well, of course, we are purchasing food because the need is up. A lot of our funds go towards purchasing food, where we would have had more of our food donated in the past. Another thing we're really focused on is we're turning the focus away from calorie-dense foods to nutrient-based, nutrient-dense foods. So in our hampers, we offer now eggs, milk, often butter, cheese, meats, and of course, fresh produce from donations and from our garden partnerships as well. So really focusing on that fresh and nutritious aspect of feeding folks.
So the good thing is that you receive this money through the Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign, and all we have to do as a community is eat Smile cookies. Like, do I have this right? Because it sounds too good to be true.
You nailed it.
You to just eat them. I do know folks who are on diets, happen maybe to be gluten-free, have some food sensitivities. They're buying them. They're buying them for their teams. They're buying them for their employees, their friends. So any way you can help out, even spreading the word about it. So following us on social media at Came Food Bank and Nutrition for Learning as well. The more we can talk about the impact this is having on the community and encouraging folks to help out any way they can, even one cookie. I mean, one cookie is $2. It provides, for us, it provides 2 nutritious meals. So you can think of it that way. It's just, 4 nutritious meals. Yeah, so you can think of it that way. It seems like a small thing, but it really does make an impact in folks' lives.
And I'll tell you what, I've never met a cookie I didn't want to eat, so I may not do as much sharing with the team as others, but I like the way you look at it, Sarah. Bottom line is, we buy those cookies, we spread the word, and we're helping out Nutrition for Learning. We're helping out the Cambridge Food Bank, Kids Ability Foundation, the other local organization benefiting. I couldn't think of a tastier, sweeter way to go about this. Thank you both for the work that you do in our community. These are important spaces that you're filling. And thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Elaine Capagines, Director of Development and Communications at Nutrition for Learning, and Sarah Tews, who's the Manager of Development at the Cambridge Food Bank, on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio. And our Talkback Hour begins with an interesting conversation that reached my ears probably getting on a month ago now, but I filed it away because it intrigued me so much. It is an organization known as the Patriotic Millionaires of Canada. And this organization recognizes that there is a gap of wealth inequality in this country, and it's one that grows ever wider. However, instead of just identifying the gap and complaining about it, they have brought forward an idea that might just help fix it. Dylan Dassault is the executive director of Patriotic Millionaires Canada and joins the show for a conversation. Dylan, good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for making the time. First of all, what is a patriotic millionaire?
Yeah, so Patriotic Millionaire is someone who joins our organization because they have really serious concerns about the deepening levels of wealth inequality in this country and how fast they're growing. They see the kind of negative impact it has, not just on our economy, but also on our democracy and our societies and our ability to function as a united country. And they believe that the tax code can be used as a tool to constrain extreme wealth inequality, while at the moment it is kind of rocket fuel for that inequality. So we advocate for policies to effectively tax the rich, essentially.
How is this wealth gap making it difficult for us to function as a country? What are those negative impacts that you're referring to?
Sure. So I'll talk about a few different things. First, on the economy, we live in a consumer-driven economy, right? And as wealth continues to funnel towards the top, people who have sort of extreme levels of wealth don't spend that wealth as they accrue it, right? They tend to hoard it. And so it's not moving through the economy effectively. And that's creating like a very top-heavy economy in a way that's unsustainable. Secondly, there are kind of trickle-down impacts on like other parts of our society, right? We have problems funding our healthcare system, our education system, high-quality infrastructure, climate mitigation, all these things, right? That the government is really the only institution that can scale to the level to effectively address, and they need funds to do that. And again, too much of the wealth in this country is going to a smaller handful of people. And then there's the level where, extreme wealth inequality really becomes extreme political power inequality. And I think we're seeing that play out across the world. I think, most notably just south of the border, we've seen what happens when we do nothing to constrain extreme wealth and the power that goes with it. And in Canada, we have a less clear pay-to-play system, maybe, with our politics than they have in the U.S., but there is still the ability to buy all of these media outlets up and narrow kind of the parameters of policy conversation, to fund all of these like think tanks that are then, conveniently putting out research that protects your personal wealth, or to, fund social media campaigns and lobbying campaigns and all these things. And it is still a significant kind of imbalance. And I think we see that play out in the policy conversation where there are these super popular policies, like a wealth tax, right, that won't even really get kind of like due consideration due to this sort of influence.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this wealth tax, because I have heard the idea put forward by politicians, most notably and most recently, of course, our federal New Democratic Party. But you, as a group of wealthy Canadians, are yourselves advocating for some sort of wealth tax. What would that wealth tax look like?
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying kind of like the reason that there is a need to tax wealth is right now, we only really effectively tax in any like super progressive way income, right? And very wealthy people primarily either only make capital gains income, which is taxed at half the rate, or half of it is taxed more accurately, or they let assets continue to accrue and they literally borrow money against those assets and they never declare any income at all and they pay a very low interest rate to the bank and live off those expenses. So, to get at that, there really is no other method than taxing wealth. There's a lot of models of what that can look like, right? I think you mentioned the NDP proposal, which starts at $10 million in wealth and starts taxing wealth above that threshold. We did some research with the EU Tax Observatory before Canada hosted the G7 last year, on like what a wealth tax could look like if we started it at $100 million, or if we started it at, $1 billion even, with just a 2% or a 3% tax. And you're talking about raising like tens of billions of dollars on an annual basis just on a pretty minimal tax on groups over 100 million or even just $1 billion. At that level of wealth, right, your wealth is growing faster than 2 or 3% annually. So we're not even talking about like, people try to claim like a wealth tax is somehow confiscatory, but what this actually does is just slightly slow down the growth of these already extreme fortunes, and, can fund a lot of really important priorities that way.
Are we talking, Dylan, specifically about individual fortunes, or are corporations, businesses involved in this as well?
Yeah, so I think I have less expertise on corporate taxes, so I don't want to get too in the weeds there. But I think it's less easy than people might think to like separate some of these things because of the way executives and shareholders like structure their compensation packages to have, shares instead of traditional income or dividend payments and things like that are taxed at a different rate. But, I think there are like some pretty significant corporate tax reforms that need to take place, but a wealth tax that we're discussing would be focused on individuals.
Okay. And if I understand Patriotic Millionaires of Canada properly here, like you are a group of wealthy Canadians that are essentially saying, hey, tax our wealth. It's like, am I understanding that properly?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. It's tax the rich by the rich. It is people who understand, like, they don't want to be very rich people in a very poor country, right? They would like to be still pretty darn rich people in a country where, everyone can kind of get their basic needs met. Everyone has opportunity for success, and we have like economic stability, right? And I think that's kind of the country they want to live in. And I think, we did polling of kind of people in this wealth bracket recently, and found that like north of 70% of them believed that higher taxes on wealthy individuals to address the cost of living was a good thing to pursue. Like 65% of them were supportive of wealth taxes. So, they're not actually as big of outliers as I think people think. There's just like this very vocal minority of people that come out of the woodwork every time somebody suggests, taxing extreme fortunes.
So what is it that's holding us back then from getting there? If we've got 70% support across your network, why can't we get to a wealth tax?
Yeah, I think that there are threats that are leveled against some of these proposals that have been like effective, right? We saw an attempt to raise the capital gains inclusion rate a couple years ago now that got this like massive pushback from the business community, from some, entrepreneurs that now had companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars or more, right? That were like, this is going to kill innovation in this country. All the wealth is going to flee this country. Just you wait. Those threats don't necessarily like pass a sniff test for me. On the innovation front, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. Very low on their list when they're deciding whether to start a new company is if this company becomes insanely successful and I make tens or hundreds of millions of dollars on it, am I going to have to pay taxes on that? Right? Like that's pretty low on their list of initial concerns, right? And I think, this idea that like wealth is going to flee again, we're talking about a tax that doesn't even stop the growth of these extreme fortunes, right? It just slows it down slightly. Are people going to uproot their lives, their families, their businesses, their investments, pay a substantial exit tax, by the way, that is more expensive than the wealth tax anyone's proposing, just to avoid that? Again, doesn't really pass the sniff test to me. But these threats are effective. They work. They scare people. They scare political leaders who, are worried that value is going to get sucked out of the economy somehow. And I think that that's, something we need to fight back against.
It is an interesting conversation, to be sure. And Dylan, I appreciate you making time for our show today so we can have the conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. You have a great one.
You too. Bye now. Dylan Dussault is the executive director of Patriotic Millionaires Canada. How about that? The wealthy saying, hey, could you please tax us more? And maybe that's the springboard for a further conversation here on our Talkback Hour. We had so many guests that we wanted to get on the show today after not being able to have a regular show yesterday, that we extended those guests into our Talkback Hour. But I thought that right there is a worthwhile talking point, this idea of a wealth tax coming from wealthy Canadians. Patriotic millionaires say, hey, we have no problem if you tax our wealth. Why don't you tax our wealth? I mean, I'm sure we could find another side to that and say, why don't you just give it away? But there has to be a mechanism then, I would think, for the equitable distribution or redistribution of that wealth. Nonetheless, the idea of wealthy Canadians saying, please apply more taxes on us. And of course, we've got the Jeffrey Slocum verdict and lots more. So much to talk about. That's why we always have a Talkback Hour, or in today's case, 3/4 of a Talkback Hour. And the phone lines are open to you, as always, on the Mike Farwell Show. We start taking your calls right after this on 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Listen, just don't call me late for dinner, okay? Or something like that. Starting our Talkback open line opportunity a little bit later today, because I really wanted to have that conversation with Patriotic Millionaires Canada. Thought it was really interesting that a whole big group of wealthy Canadians are saying, hey, look over here. Look at all this wealth we have. Could you please tax it more? Oftentimes, we hear elected officials saying we must tax the rich. In this case, it's the rich saying we need a wealth tax in Canada, and even offered some high-level mathematical equations to say tens of billions of dollars could be brought in to government coffers through such a wealth tax. Maybe something you want to talk about here on the Talkback Hour. Maybe you want to reflect on the Jeffrey Slocum verdict from last Friday, which has dominated our conversation today. Nearly 4 dozen complainants, and acquitted on all charges of sexual assault as the former neurologist who will not practice his profession anymore. His license was revoked. He has not applied to have it reinstated. But I don't think that does much for those dozens and dozens of women who came forward to share their stories, only to have the acquittal happen on Friday in a Kitchener court. So there was that. And of course, lots of other things happening in our world. Hey, how are you feeling about that economic update coming from the federal government? Imagine if the deficit's less than $78 billion. Maybe we'll throw a party with the balance. I don't know. Phone lines open at 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. I'm here in the remote studio in Windsor. You are where you are. Let's have a chat. We'll start things off with JB on Talkback today. Good afternoon, JB.
Hey, Farwell. How's Windsor?
You know what? Actually, the sun's coming out, so I'm kind of excited. The show's done in about 40 minutes, and I'm going to get outside, I think.
There you go. I mean, it's still gray here, but at least the rain stopped for now.
Good. Glad to hear it.
I just wanted to two things. First of all, the Slocum case. The system is inherently broken if that's what's happening. If 4 dozen people are coming forward and he's able to be acquitted, that's disgusting. I'm just going to leave it there. Because we could go on for a while. But the reason I'm calling is because I wanted to thank anybody who donated to the harm reduction vibe production that we had this past Saturday in Kitchener, and update everyone. We managed to raise $2,600 for Sanguine, and I just wanted to extend a big thank you to my community and the community at large that supported our event, and we're excited to start planning for next year.
I love it. When you were on last week, you were about $900. You said you would have loved to get to 2,500, and you went above and beyond at 26.
Yeah, a big driver of that was actually the raffle that we had on site. We probably got between $400 and $500 came just from the raffle, so that was really cool. So we were really grateful to all the businesses that contributed.
Fantastic. Well done, sir. And when you're ready for the next one, some promotion, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, JB. Great to hear from you today on Talkback. The harm reduction vibe production on the weekend, raising $2,600 for Sanguine. Love it. Let's go next to Dave on Talkback. Dave, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'd like to briefly comment on last night's game with the puzzlement, and I'm going to ask your assistance on it. I recognize the fact that we're dealing with young adults. But here's the puzzlement. The one player got a double minor for high sticking. And a short time later, his fellow player watching on the bench says, well, you got that for 4 minutes. Watch what I do for 4 minutes. And he did the same thing. So I recognize the fact that they're young adults, but come on, give me a break. That's my comment, and I'm asking your outlook on it.
All right, Dave. I appreciate the call. It's nice to hear from you as always. The Kitchener Rangers, yes, last night took 5 or offered the Windsor Spitfires 5 power play opportunities. Only 3 times, though, did the Rangers go to the box, because on 2 of those occasions, they went to the box for 4 minutes. You go to the box, you feel shame. That's what the Rangers did. 4 minutes, double minor for high sticking. Look, young athletes, older athletes, high sticking is high sticking. What I find the most arbitrary, if I'm honest with you, is that if the high stick happens to draw blood, it turns into a double minor. Like, what's the difference? So you kind of get lucky that you don't draw blood. So a quote unquote normal high stick is only 2 minutes. But if you happen to catch the guy in the wrong spot or with the wrong part of your stick, I don't know, and you draw blood, then it's 4. Listen, it's as black and white a rule as we have in hockey, much like the shooting the puck over the glass in the defensive zone being a delay of game penalty. A high stick that draws blood is a 4-minute penalty. Simple as that. They happen all the time. I'm not holding the Rangers accountable here. It was a bad night for getting sticks up, I guess, and I suspect they will take fewer penalties in Game 4 tomorrow. That's my takeaway from last night's 4-2 loss here in Windsor. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center back home, and then I'm taking more of your calls until our show is done today. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Every day from noon until 1, we open our phone lines so we can engage in conversation with you on the issues of the day, or maybe it's the issue you would like to make the issue of the day. Talkback hour from noon until 1 at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. And we continue Talkback with Kyle this afternoon. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Got to enjoy junior hockey. You know what? This is what it's all about. Kids are going to make mistakes. They learn. And playoffs, you just start over. In my opinion, the season starts right over during playoffs compared to the regular season. Nobody said it's going to be easy. Nobody said that, they're going to walk through. It's going to be a battle all the way to the end. I got my tickets for Friday. I'm on the bandwagon. I don't think I'm going to try to even miss a game here now because I've been following it since day one. So let's go Rangers. Come on, baby. We can do this. Let's go Rangers! Woo! Thanks, Mike. Have a good day, buddy.
Thanks, Kyle. Always good to hear from you. Always good to hear that enthusiasm. Appreciate the call. Here's the thing. Look, we didn't get a chance because it was a road game last night. So we only do Rangers talk and take your calls and talk Rangers hockey after home games. We just don't have the opportunity to do it on the road because we can't stay in the visiting building. There are places to go and arenas to get out of, et cetera, et cetera. So at the risk of making it too much like Rangers talk and sounding too much like the Rangers fan that I am, I mean, come on. Look, Windsor's a very good hockey club, but I grew up in this town. You know me, not the town I'm in right now. I'm in Windsor for Game 4 tomorrow night, but I'm a Kitchener boy, born and raised, old North Warder. So, of course, I cheer for the Rangers. And look, nobody expected anybody to sweep the other buddy in this series. Yes, of course, the Rangers put themselves in position, winning both games on home ice, but you knew you were going to get the best of the series so far from Windsor last night. That's what the Rangers got. Did they get themselves into some trouble with the penalties early on? Absolutely. And that's the way the cookie crumbles from time to time. Kitchener still has a 2-1 series lead, and that just makes tomorrow night's Game 4 all the bigger. Are we coming home with a 3-1 lead for that Game 5 on Friday, or are we coming home in a 2-2 series that is now a best of 3 with the team winning 2 of the next 3, winning the series and moving on to the OHL championship? If you take this from a higher level view, I'll remind you that after the Rangers opened up the 2-0 series lead, in order to win the series, Windsor has to win 4 out of 5 games. So they did 1 last night. Okay, they still have to win now 3 of the next 4. And the Kitchener Rangers don't often go into skids like that. Again, Windsor's a very good team. So too are these Kitchener Rangers. So I wouldn't get too worried yet, but I get it. You never want to lose. Look, this team doesn't want to lose. This coaching staff doesn't want to lose. They lost last night because these are very good hockey teams left in the OHL playoffs. You're not going to win every one of the games that you play. Simple as that. Windsor gets the 4-2 win last night. You heard Kyle mention tickets. He's already got his tickets for Friday. I hope you already have yours too, because our crowds have been great at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. Those tickets actually went on sale last night right after the game. As soon as we knew there would be a Game 5, the tickets went on sale. I'm sure you can still get your hands on 1 or 2 today, but we want to make sure we pack that barn again on Friday night and make some noise. It was a little quiet here in Windsor last night. I'm not going to tell a lie. They tried early on to get going with things, even when they built up a 2-0 lead, but it was much quieter here in Windsor than it has been back home in Kitchener. So let's get out there and support the boys on Friday night. Could be a clinching game. Could be the game they need to get the advantage in the series again. We shall see after Game 4 tomorrow. But Game 5, back at the Memorial Auditorium, Friday night. Tickets are on sale now. And that's just the second big game at the Memorial Auditorium this week. Tomorrow night, the KW Titans at home to the Sudbury 5. The Titans jumped out to a 2-0 series lead in this best of 5 basketball Super League championship. They won both games at home. They go to Sudbury for the next 2, and the Sudbury 5 win them both, including Last night, 100-97. The Titans led through 3 quarters, but couldn't hang on. So now it comes down to a deciding game tomorrow night in Kitchener. The Sudbury Five at the Memorial Auditorium to take on your Titans. The winner of the game wins the Basketball Super League Championship. The Sudbury Five are the defending champs. Let's see how our Titans do, and let's see how much you want to support them. Get out there and get behind those KW Titans for the championship game tomorrow night at the Memorial Auditorium. Back to the phones here. Talk Back continues with Dan. Dan, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. It's me again. I hope I'm not talking your ear off. I just wanted to make the comparison. Playoff hockey, that's what it's all about. Like you said, any team can beat any other team on any given night. And I just wanted to make the comparison with Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. I know you must be following that. And I just thought how interesting it is. It just makes it all the more exciting when a team shows that, we're not going to go down without a fight. So it's a good thing. And keep it up and go Rangers.
All right, Dan, appreciate the call. Great to hear from you, even a couple of times during the show. That's okay. It's a 4-hour show. Lots of time to share ideas. Other things might pop into your head based on something we talked about. And it's funny. I was getting teased by a buddy of mine because obviously I'm a Leafs fan. They didn't even make the playoffs. Then I decided I'm going to be a Pittsburgh Penguins fan for the playoffs, and they go down 3-0 to the Philadelphia Flyers. But, don't look now. It's 3-2. Pittsburgh has won the last couple of games. When you get down, particularly to where the Rangers are in the playoffs, one of the final 4 teams, you're not getting a slouch out there on the other side of the ice. So, yes, these teams are all high caliber, high quality, and that's the kind of hockey we should expect. So we've seen great games in this series. Let's be honest. They've been very good games in this series. Kitchener winning in overtime on Friday night, last Friday back home, and then winning a 2-1 game on Sunday. 24 hours later, losing 4-2. The last goal, though, went into an empty net with less than 30 seconds to go. So I call that a 1-goal game anyway. And it's been great hockey between Kitchener and Windsor, and I have no doubt tomorrow will be the same. By the way, when you go to the KW Titans game at the Memorial Auditorium, you can take an earbud with you and listen in to Josh Piercy and I. I mean, we're not in Windsor for nothing, We're in Windsor to eat pizza and broadcast hockey games, okay? Let's just get that straight. So we'll be on the air tomorrow night with your Harris Law pregame show starting at 6:30, and we invite you to be a part of all of the pregame coverage so you have every bit of information you need before the game begins, and then all of the action from the WFCU Center. Especially when the Rangers are on the road, you're going to get way better insights into the Kitchener Rangers side of things, and the players' names pronounced correctly when you're listening to the home broadcast. Just letting you know about that little thing. Let's go to Grant next on Talk Back this afternoon. Hello, Grant.
Hello. Would you say all NHL players, they have high stick? In fact, I know my brother was saying, NHL players, they control their stick.
No, high sticks happen all the time, Grant. High sticks happen all the time.
Yeah, I would say so, too.
I would say so, yeah.
It was good to see Andinoski skating off or working off whatever happened to him. Looked like he had maybe bent his leg awkwardly at the end board. And like I said, it was nice that he was able to come back out in the other periods, and hopefully he's probably skating around that today to fix his problem. And then I think
he's just going to skate it off, eh?
And Luke Romano, I think he was kind of injured there a little bit, but then he came back, I believe so. And so what's the music for Friday? What's the request?
Good one, Grant. Okay, thanks. I'll get to all of this. I appreciate the call. Good to hear from you today. Let's get to the Rangers stuff. And look, it was a physical game last night. There was a play upon which Matt Andonovski took a little bit to get up, but that kid is tougher than a $3 schnitzel. So we weren't too worried about him, but it's a strange sight to see. Matt Andonovski slow to get up off the ice after a hit, and Luca Romano as well. I didn't see it clearly. And look, we got two sets of eyes up in the broadcast booth, and sometimes we both miss things. I'm always following the puck. I have no idea what Piercy's looking at sometimes. I don't know. But the play that caused Luca Romano to miss a few shifts, I thought was just an innocent kind of collision, but I honestly didn't see it myself. So I'm not certain, but Romano came back as well. So look, you know that at this time of year, people are playing banged up in the OHL and the NHL, you know, in sports in general. When it comes to playoff time, guys tend to put on their bravest face and play through some difficult circumstances. So I'm sure there are some Windsor players that are feeling the bumps and bruises of what has been a physical series so far. I'm sure there are Kitchener Rangers who are feeling the bumps and bruises, but no player was lost to injury last night, despite some of the big hits that were thrown. And the team did go over and skate earlier today. I couldn't be at the rink with them because I'm here with you, but to the best of my knowledge, every player is accounted for during that skate today over at the WFCU Center while you and I have the chat here on the show. I'm glad you asked, Grant, about the theme for Friday. Clinton sent me an email to that same effect. Mike at 570news.com is the email. And I'm sorry, I didn't even think. I had so many other things on my mind today when I started the show. So the theme for this week's All Request Friday is going to be actors who sing. Okay. And look, I don't play. I try not to play too rough in this little All Request Friday theme. So if it's a singer who acted, okay. But I would really like us to go with somebody primarily known for their acting that also sang. Maybe one song. Maybe they recorded an album. Maybe they tried starting a music career after their acting career. I don't know. But I want to try that because we played last week on the show. One of our songs to begin the show was from David Soul, who was better known from the TV show Starsky and Hutch. And to this day, that's what David Soul was known much better for. But he did try to embark on a music career, and he had a hit back in the late 1970s. So I thought, well, why not? Well, that just gave me the idea then, and we'll carry it over to this week. So actors who sang. Okay. See what you can do with that theme. And that's what we're going to do for All Request Friday this week. You can email me a request. Again, the email address is mike at 570news.com. Or when you call in to talk to us, or you want to just call in and tell Jen what song you want to hear, you go right ahead and do that. David Soul would be such an example. How about, didn't Eddie Murphy, I don't want to remember Party All the Time, but was that not a thing? And I would say that's somebody, primarily an actor, who also sang. I'm also pretty sure, even though I warned you last week when I brought this up, I think David Hasselhoff was a thing. Wasn't he big in Germany with his music? But David Hasselhoff, much better known as an actor, right? You see where I'm going with this? I'm not trying to take all your ideas. I'm sure you've got many that I haven't even thought of, but give it some thought. Your All Request Friday theme this week. Actors who also tried singing or did sing. Hits or not hits, it's up to you. This is your Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. And we continue on 570 News Radio. It is your daily Talkback Hour, during which we open the phone lines and allow you to have your voice heard on the issues of the day. Let's get right back to the phones and say hello to Tom. Good afternoon, Tom.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
What did you think of the budget?
Is it out already? Did I miss it?
Well, they
I thought it was
said
this
that
afternoon.
they're going to give $25 billion to the people to start businesses, but that means that it's only going to their cronies.
The
And then-
sovereign wealth fund. Here's my biggest concern with the sovereign wealth fund.
I know.
We don't have $25 billion, so where are we going to get it from? Yeah.
Well, you can get it back from Ukraine. I mean, how can you give $25 billion to the most corrupt government in the universe?
Has it been 25 billion already, Tom? I don't think so.
At least.
At least 25 billion. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't think it had been that
like
many.
look after him, and then why would you want to kill those Ukrainians and Russians? Like when you give weapons, both of them die. So instead of Canada was always a peaceful nation. They were always talking. So why doesn't Carney go and talk to the Russians and say, look, we want to negotiate peace, or instead of making these stupid speeches.
Hang on, Tom. You really think that's possible? You think Mark Carney is going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and Putin's going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to remove my troops"?
No, you're not. But I mean, they should.
Well, then,
he should, when he speaks in Davos,
why should he waste his time?
About
Why?
Peace.
Okay.
Speak about peace instead of Trump. So
I love it. Great stuff, Tom.
Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye. Yeah. I get, listen, I want peace as much as the next person. I really do. World peace. Give peace a chance. Haven't we been singing about that for about 6 decades now? All I'm telling you is that you would waste every second of your time if you tried to engage Vladimir Putin in a conversation about ending the war with Ukraine. Simple as, and we shouldn't be in the business of wasting our time. I'll waste no more time. Getting right back to the phones. Rudy is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Rudy.
You were saying actors that sing and have bands. Kevin Bacon.
Oh, that's right. He's part of that, like, what is it, Crow's Foot or Crow? What is, isn't he one of that, like that?
He's got a band, and he had.
Well, Rudy, you listen. You're putting me on the spot here. Chicken Foot. I think. Anyway, whatever it is, you figure that out and send in your request, you knucklehead.
You have a great day, buddy.
Okay, Rudy, you too. I'm going to get to Preston Paul next because he's here with us too. Jen, are you having trouble back there? We're going to go to Preston Paul now. Hi, Paul.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm just having a grand old time over here. I don't know what they're doing back at the station, but they're not paying attention.
All right. I got a couple of things. I just want to know if you need help. I heard on the weekend when you were calling the game that you needed to put some hockey into a syringe and stick it in your arm. I damn near spit my coffee out when you said that.
Inject it into my veins, buddy. You betcha.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But just talking about that verdict that came down on Friday, that is absolutely disgusting on what has happened. I just can't believe that would happen. And this just proves that our society is just going to hell in a handbasket, Mike.
Yeah, Paul, listen, I appreciate the call. It's a tough one for sure. And I wish I had a better way to frame or phrase it. But I have a difficult time disagreeing with Paul's sentiments on discussing. It feels like a miscarriage of justice if you believe in such things. I said it earlier. I try to refer to our system as a court or legal system because one's definition of justice is their own. It's very subjective. Most of us, I think, would agree in broad strokes, but we have a legal system, and that legal system requires a tremendous burden of evidence. And as one of our guests on the show said earlier today, just because there was an acquittal does not mean there was innocence in this. I find it, quite frankly, unfathomable that there could be so many stories and none of them lead to a conviction of any kind. But this is law and order, and we must uphold the rule of that law. I got to get out of here for the day. That sovereign wealth fund that Tom alluded to earlier, we'll be talking about more on the show tomorrow. The Blacklocks reporter will be here. Blue Jay Hunter will be here, and lots more. So I'll come back tomorrow morning at 9, and you're invited to join me. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.